Episode 2 of Dead Sounds Dinosauria Volume 2 is officially out. The episode's title is Hunted by Moonlight. This episode is probably my most anticipated episode ever since we got that first trailer. The main reason for that is because I love Dilophosaurus. Dilophosaurus is easily one of my favorite dinosaurs, and I think that it doesn't have enough good representation in media. A lot of the Dilophosaurus appearances that we have are from years ago, so it's a little bit outdated, or they're inspired from Jurassic Park, which of course Jurassic Park is not a good analog for the real life Dilophosaurus. I mean, the novel's closer, but the movie is not a great analog. So I was so happy to see this kind of Dilophosaurus on screen, and it was glorious. Everything about it I absolutely loved. Now, before I talk about this episode a little bit more, I do highly encourage you to go and check out the episode first before coming back to hear me yap about it a little bit. That way you get the best overall experience. I do have the link to the episode down in the description below, so just go and check that out real quick, and then come back, and then we can hang out for a little bit. That sound good? Great. Now, I don't want to go too far into spoiler territory, but I'll just kind of give you broad strokes of the story and all that, and then I mostly want to talk about the creatures. So this episode, fitting for the month of Halloween, is kind of like a little bit of a horror episode, kind of based off of gothic horror, and it is executed quite well. There's so many elements about it that is really quite creepy and just terrifying overall, and you're just looking at it through the lens of these little Scutellosaurs that are simply trying to survive these massive Dilophosaurs, which is, of course, just kind of like a realistic setting to be in. These are prey items that are just trying to not become prey, essentially. And of course, it's very terrifying from their eyes. The Scutellosaurs have a great design. If you don't know, Scutellosaurus is like a basal thyreophoran. So it's kind of like the precursor to the later derived Stegosaurs and the Ankylosaurs. They were bipedal little fellas, and they were definitely little. They weren't big animals at all, and they were covered in osteoderms. Dead Sound captured them beautifully here. They look absolutely amazing, and I think it's really cool that we get to follow them over the course of the story. Another huge highlight for me was the Cerosaurs. The Cerosaurus is a basal sauropodomorph, which is a precursor to the more derived sauropods, the large dinosaurs that we all know and love, like Argentinosaurus or Apatosaurus. This all does take place in the early Jurassic of North America, where all of these animals did live. So of course you would find more basal members of these animals, because it's accurate in that department. I love basal sauropodomorphs, especially when they have great designs. Basal sauropodomorphs, a lot of them are really interesting because a lot of them are mostly bipedal, with these huge arms that have huge claws as well. And they have the classic thin neck that's very long and a small head like later sauropods have. But in terms of their body stance and the way they walk around, it's completely different from later sauropods, which I think is fascinating. The Cerosaurs look great right here. It's really great to see them on screen too. There's also a huge assortment of different animals just kind of roaming around. We see, I believe, a little amphibian kind of crawling around. I believe it's an amphibian, correct me if I'm wrong. There's also some snails just kind of hanging out, and some pterosaurs flying around. But obviously, like I said, the highlight for me was Dilophosaurus. It was done so beautifully here. The colors, the insane size that it has, and the way that the crest is portrayed just looks absolutely beautiful. Dilophosaurus, of course, was a lot more different than its on-screen appearance in Jurassic Park. Of course, I know that might have been a juvenile, but they have failed to confirm that in later films, so as far as we know, it's just small in universe. Dilophosaurus was closer to 8 feet tall, which is about the same size as a Halo Elite, if you play Halo. It had this long, slender body with arms that had 4 fingers on each hand, and most notably, it did have 2 crests situated on top of its head. That's where the name Dilophosaurus comes from. It translates to double-crested lizard. The exact size and shape of Dilophosaurus's crest is kind of unknown because the skull in which the crest is preserved actually has the crest a little bit damaged. It's a little bit broken on top of its noggin. So in terms of the actual size of the crest, that is up to the artist, the artist's interpretation. Me personally, I always love to see kind of these huge crests portrayed on Dilophosaurus, which is exactly what Dead Sound had portrayed. And it just looks glorious. And I also love how it looks like there's small amounts of feathers just kind of on top of the crests that lead into the back, where there's also small amounts of feathers. It is actually possible that Dilophosaurus did have feathers. It's also possible that feathers are kind of like a basal trait for Dinosauria as a whole. Obviously, we don't know that for sure, but it is a possibility. The colors are also fantastic. They have colors that blend in quite perfectly with their environment. Obviously, everything is kind of like drenched with this sort of blue coloration because, of course, it's all like meant to be moonlight. And then there's these glowing red and yellow fungi all over the place. I love how the Dilophosaurus is able to use that fungi as camouflage. Like those crests match the color of the fungi very nicely, and it makes for some pretty creepy moments. Like that's the kind of fun storytelling behavior that I like to see, especially for an episode that's supposed to be like a little bit of a, more horror themed. So Dead Sound absolutely did great in terms of all of the animal designs. The sound design was also really good. All of these animals made like really good and like in some cases creepy noises. The music really stood out to me on this one as well. The music was done by Ivan Dutch, who has done absolutely amazing tracks. Like I absolutely love the way that it sounds. In this episode in particular, it was just so creepy, and it just aired on the side of just like, yeah, this is a terrifying situation that we're currently in, and there was a lot of really good build-up music and everything like that. And music certainly does help build an atmosphere, and that is very much apparent right here. So music was absolutely awesome. And once again, the visuals were just absolutely beautiful. I love Dinosauria. I've talked about this time and time again. Dinosauria is, I think, and it's an incredible dinosaur project that incorporates awesome storytelling and like paleo accuracy, and it mixes them into this awesome soup. Like obviously not everything kind of holds to 100% accuracy. Dead Sound has mentioned several times in his making of videos that, sometimes there are creative liberties taken if it helps support the story. Take, for example, in the last episode, Terrible Lizards, we do see in the modern day, Iguanodon kind of coexisting with Megalosaurus, when obviously that never happened. But it just kind of like makes a little bit more sense for the story that he was telling at the time. I didn't really find too many major inaccuracies in this one. Like, for the most part, everything kind of like lined up to what we currently know about the animals that were showcased. Of course, I could be missing something, but even if there were some inaccuracies placed into it, it was likely done for storytelling reasons, which again is completely fine. I love this. I was, again, really looking forward to this episode, and it definitely did not disappoint. I am so happy that we got to see a Dilophosaurus on screen that is a little bit more in line to the real-life Dilophosaurus. There was also about 3 Dilophosaurs. They had like various different sizes. The larger ones had more bulk, which was really cool, and of course the younger ones were a little bit more slim. It was great. Everything about it was great, and I loved to see it. So far, this is probably one of my favorite episodes of Dinosauria in general, and I'm probably going to go and watch it again. Anyway, that's pretty much all I have for this one. I just wanted to talk about Dinosauria for a little bit. If you liked this video and you like dinosaur-related content, please consider subscribing. I would love to have you on board. And until next time, thank you so much for watching, and have an awesome day.